Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
iOS, it's only sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. Welcome to the podcast. Highlights of today's 1 till 4 live show on the platform. Every day we do 3 hours of sport. We just talk sport. It is only sport. And what a show today. The podcast, only two very special guests. Ivan Cleary, super coach, back to back premierships with Penrith. So many questions to ask Ivan. What is there left to achieve after you've won 3 in a row? Would you ever coach Origin? Could you do both jobs? Talk to us about Andrew Webster, who you know so well and worked with for such a long time, and the Warriors' success and what to expect of the Warriors next year. Which of the 3 of your premiership wins is the most satisfying? Did you honestly believe with 18 minutes left and 16 points down you were coming back against Brisbane? And as a coach, what do you do in that situation? You're in the box. I mean, how do you communicate? Jerome Luai. What's he like? Is he likeable? How do you, as a coach, coordinate all the personalities in your dressing room? Ivan Cleary, the elongated interview on this podcast, and Andrew Mehrtens. Well, who doesn't like Mertz? He's a very, very special former All Black who's made a hell of a career, just like Justin Marshall has, in the broadcasting side of it afterwards. We'll pick his brains about the Rugby World Cup, where the state of the game is at the moment. Should All Blacks be picked to play from overseas? Razor's first year in charge, what to expect from all of that. Tied 5, but essentially most of the podcast is all about Ivan Cleary. But as always, we start tablets at hand. I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Second test against Bangladesh. Do you really care? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
New Zealand cricket need the Black Caps to win the second test versus Bangladesh today. I think it's more than need. I think it's a must win. It's a need to win. It's a have to win. It's probably essential that the team does win. But will they? Doubtful at best, especially the way we lost that first test. We are now faced with a very similar situation that happened 2 years ago, January 2022, if you remember. We were smacked in the first test in Tauranga, 8 wickets that loss. We had to bounce back, and of course we did. We won by an innings and 17 runs in the second match. But that was at home, and this is not. And the way we struggled in the first test against their spinners suggests more of the same when play does get underway this afternoon at 4:30. Yes, there are selectorial questions. How does, for example, Henry Nicholls keep his spot? Why not try Ravinda? Well, why not? He batted well on Indian pitches at the One-Day World Cup. Bangladesh, in case the selectors aren't too familiar with the geopolitical history of the region, was once eastern Pakistan and part of India, meaning conditions could well be called somewhat similar. But we won't, because we just don't make changes, do we? We all know that we should, but we just don't make them. We'll play the same side that lost last week, and if we lose again, all the same old excuses will be offered and proffered. The conditions don't suit us, pitches that turned, no warm-up matches. We weren't that far away in the end. Oh, it's been a long year, there's spinners, blah, blah, blah. Fact is, we just aren't a great side right now. We aren't the same side that won the World Test Championship 3 years ago. We haven't replaced Ross Taylor and Trent Boult. But how could we, though? 2 of our greatest ever players. Replaced with who? Oh, that's right, that up-and-coming young star who's performing so well in the Plunket Shield. Yeah, right. It's become a bit of a running gag, the Black Caps selectorial policy. Many scribes that I'm recently reading intimating cronyism, mates' rates, harder to get out once you're in than force your way in when someone else is out of form. In the end, the only thing that really matters is results. A draw in the 2-match series is credible. A 2-0 defeat is disastrous. But probably what is way worse is that I'm not sure that many people these days really care. The Black Caps lose to Bangladesh. Oh yeah. That ambivalence is what New Zealand cricket should really fear.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
If you've just joined us on the program, Ivan Cleary. Good long chat with Ivan around about 2:15 today. Lachlan, sports, news, headline.
Where to start? Plenty around today, actually. Nice, juicy stories. Pretty standard other stories, newsy things. Some results to work through as well. And live sport on today.
On, let's do it all, mate.
It's too much. It's like those those appetizing platters you get at a Thai restaurant where it's got the money bag and it's got, the prawn toast.
I just go too hard on those.
Chicken
I just go too
satay
hard,
skewer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You end up having to get a doggy bag for the main.
Yep,
I actually
exactly.
get told off these days. You don't have to hoover at all. But when the entree...
Yes, you do.
Yeah, that's the point,
That's the fun in it. And then you sit there afterwards, you go, geez, I
ate too fast. Way too fast.
Yeah, but that's what we do. All right, an Auckland teen is set to make New Zealand Olympic history at next year's Winter Youth Games as the first Kiwi ice figure skater to be selected for sport's biggest stage. Yan Hao Lee has been named in the New Zealand team for the Gangwon 2024 Winter Youth Olympic Games, competing in the individual men's event. Good job, Yan Hao.
Well done.
He's got how a lot of sort of Chinese or Korean people have like New Zealand names or English names. His English name is Dwayne. Great name.
Really?
Dwayne Lee.
Wayne Lee. Okay. I bet he's named after The Rock. I wonder.
Well, he's rock solid on the ice. That's
Here
why.
we go. There we go. Now he's starting to cook. He's starting to cook, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm feeling it. It's like social football last night. I'm feeling it.
Feeling it.
I'm feeling it.
No one cares about social football.
We lost anyway. Football ferns, they have fallen to a 1-0 defeat in their second match against
did
Colombia.
they score?
Well,
Sorry,
no.
that was a joke.
Yeah, they lost 1-0. So, and now is it Bogota or Bogota?
I'd say Bogota.
Bogota. I thought it was Bogota.
No, that's something that you row on a river, isn't it?
Oh, okay, no. What? Okay, it's anyway been a pretty ordinary year for the New Zealand women, as has Martin's humour as well. Their 2023 record is 2 wins in 16 games. Those 2 wins, Martin, do you know them?
Vietnam and Norway.
Yep. And the Norway one was.
Have we scored in any other game apart from those games?
Don't think so.
No.
No. Well, we didn't score another game at the World Cup. I know that. Declan Rice headed home the winner as Arsenal edged by Luton Town 4-3 in a very, very entertaining English Premier League game this morning. Arsenal remain on top of the table. Their points lead, if you bear with me for a second here as I search the table up, I think it is 5 points ahead of Liverpool. Now, Liverpool, Man City have a game in hand on Arsenal. That's key here. But Arsenal ahead of Liverpool by 5 points and City behind Liverpool in third on 30, Liverpool 31, Arsenal 36. Liverpool and City both play tomorrow morning, as do Man United.
Hey!
Wolves beat Burnley as well this morning, 1-0. Manchester United, speaking of, have banned journalists, these journalists being from 4 media outlets, from their news conference with boss Erik ten Hag. This conference was on Tuesday, so that would have been overnight this morning our time. Man United claiming they had not been given right of reply to negative stories around the club.
Yeah, that's going to help.
These journalists are from Sky, ESPN, the Manchester Evening News, and the Mirror. Pretty big outlets. If I'm Ten Hag, I'd tell them to turn up and come at me.
Absolutely.
New Zealanders James Fisher-Harris and Georgia. Now, I thought it was pronounced Harley, but we heard in the top of our news that it was Hale, so I'm going to go by what I think it is, which is Georgia Harley. They've created Golden Boot history after being chosen as the respective 2023 men's women's winners of the International Rugby League Golden Boot Award. Good stuff. Formula One's governing body, the FIA, is set to launch an investigation into a potential conflict of interest believed to be centred on Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff and his wife Susie. Susie Wolff is the managing director of the F1 Academy, the all-female series run by F1's owners, Formula One Management, or FOM. The allegations have been denied by Mercedes and F1. Neither party has been named by the FIA, but it is understood they are the subject of the investigation after as yet unsubstantiated reports that Wolff had made a remark in a team principals meeting that suggested he had knowledge that could only have been sourced from FOM, so stuff that he'd probably heard from his wife. All right, this is more speculation rather than fact, but something to ponder. It involves former Australian lightning fast bowler Mitchell Johnson and his comments about David Warner. I'm sure you know all about this. In Johnson's regular podcast, The Mitchell Johnson Show, with journalist Bharat Sundaresan, he said he was due to commentate for Triple M this summer, but yesterday, Johnson's name was absent from a Triple M media release that confirmed the list of commentators. There were 18 names listed, including Mark Taylor, Merv Hughes, and Wasim Akram. Triple M was contacted for comment over in Australia, not by us, of course, by someone else in Australia. They did not reply. So he comes out, expresses an opinion on David Warner, and now Triple M don't want to use him for their commentary. That's at least what that seems to be. Not confirmed, but that's what it seems to be. Live sport on today. The NBA in-season tournament continues. The knockout phase of it, that is. The Bucks and the Knicks up against each other at 1:30 today, so that's tipping off very, very soon. Following that, the Lakers and the Suns, the winners, go through to the semi-finals. Yesterday, the Celtics, Pacers beat the Celtics, that is. Pelicans beating the Kings yesterday. So those are the other two teams that have advanced. And the Black Caps, of course, playing. They're taking on Bangladesh. First ball in the second test at 4:30 today. And if you need reminding, yes, the Black Caps lost the first test in pretty embarrassing fashion. So, at best, they can draw the series. Let's hope that happens. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh, my goodness me!
The platform.
Ivan Cleary, former Warriors player, former Warriors coach. Oh, how did we let him go? He wanted 4 years. We'd only give him 3, and he went to Penrith. And it wasn't so successful to start with. But I mean, people might forget that. It wasn't so successful to start with. In the actual fact, he got the Archer, went over to West Tigers, came back to Penrith, and has won back-to-back premierships. So many questions to ask this man. Does he have a favourite out of those 3 wins? Or how do you differentiate them all? 18 minutes to go, 16 points down against Brisbane. I mean, did he honestly think that his team was going to claw back in that one? And sitting in the coach's box, I mean, how does he communicate? What does he say exactly? Andrew Webster, good old mate of his. He knows him so well. And the Warriors, let's look back at the Warriors' first season under Webby. How do you define success for the Warriors in terms of next year? Has he ever thought about coaching? Oh, you, Ivan, have you ever thought about coaching Origin? Would you ever do that job? And Jerome Luai, he's loved by Penrith. He's unloved by anyone who doesn't love Penrith. How do you blend that personality amongst all the others in your dressing room? So much looking forward to this. It's an interview that we have broken into 2 parts for you on the podcast. So what have you been doing since the grand final? I'm hoping you've had a holiday of sorts.
Yeah, I got away. Went overseas for a couple of weeks and just a few other bits and pieces, but I'm chilly back into it now, but doing pretty good.
What is there left more for you to achieve with this Penrith side?
Oh, hopefully another premiership. Sort of, it's just each year rolls around and we just look to try and, do the very best we can. Obviously, it's having had some success. Now we obviously set the bar pretty high, so we'd love to win it again. But we've just got to go back to the drawing board each season, and we'll do the same again this year. Once you've had the taste of winning and success, it's a pretty nice feeling. So it's very motivating to try and get there again.
Is that? Would you consider that to be the sole motivator or your biggest motivator, getting wins and keeping on winning?
That's certainly a big part of it. We like to be a source of pride for our community out here in Penrith, so that's one of the real drivers. So once you have success, it sort of it puts the expectations in the bar, raises the bar quite high. So that's always something where we're keen to keep our fans and our community happy and enjoying their footy and feeling proud about being from Penrith. So that's probably the biggest driver that we have.
Is that Penrith side of yours one of the greatest ever? Because statistically, it has to be.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess what we've achieved, 3 premierships in succession, no one's ever done it in the modern era. The last time it happened was back in the 80s, when life was a little bit different. So, I look at the end of the day, it's for someone else to decide, and it'll be an argument that will go around in circles probably. But we're proud of what we've achieved, particularly over the last few years, and just looking forward to just continuing the journey. Really, that's there's no sort of end point. It's not the way we look at it, really. And we keep developing players, and there's always new players, and each season's got different circumstances, and obviously winning is fun, so hopefully we can keep doing it.
Which of the 3 wins is the most satisfying? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I can't really have a definitive answer there. They're all different. They're all felt as good as each other. So it's I can't really say one's better than the other, but like anything in life, I suppose the most recent one was more in your memory. So the way this year's one was decided in the grand final was just it was pretty amazing. So, but if I really think about it and try and go back to the emotions and memories I had for the others, they're all just as good.
Ivan, you said after the grand final that was the deepest hole that you have been in a coach in a while. And when they were leading and there's 18 minutes left and they had 16 points, Did you honestly think that your team was coming back in that go?
Not at that moment, no. I mean, at that stage, it was a bit of an avalanche from the Broncos. So, my thoughts at the time were just trying to work out how we were going to try and stop that. I mean, the only thing that was really giving me hope was the amount of time on the clock. So, and also, I mean, I've got a lot of faith in our team, but it wasn't looking great, that's for sure. So, as it turned out, once we got a little bit of, we stopped their momentum and then got a little bit of, sort of stuff going our way, then I felt totally different. But right at that moment, when we went down 24-8, it wasn't looking great.
So you're sitting up in the box and there are other coaches like Ricky Stewart who love being on the sideline. I mean, at times like that, do you wish you were on the sideline? Because how can you control anything at all from the box? What do you actually do?
Pretty much sit up there with my feet up, mate. Not too much. I mean, look, that's part of, part of coaching and like the way I see it is you do most of your work during the week and throughout the season and seasons on top of other seasons where, we have a way we like to do things and then you sort of empower the players to go out there and do it. Obviously I send messages through the trainers also, but most of the time, we've had enough. The good thing about having success is you get to have everyone gets to have trust in the system and how we do things, and so it's more just little reminders here and there, or just changes of tactics potentially on the run, so or making changes through substitution. So, but at that point, I mean, you're sending down messages like if you get a try scored against you once the game's stopped. But most of the time, once our trainer gets out there, our captains are pretty much saying the same thing anyway. So that's pretty much how it works.
Ivan Cleary is with us on the platform. The performance from Nathan, I mean, you've witnessed some amazing things from him. Is that the best that you have seen, the way that he took control in that last 18 minutes?
Oh, probably. Yeah, he has had some lots of great games over the years. But I think the good thing about this one was that he wasn't having his greatest game before that last 20 minutes. He was also, he got injured early in the game, which was another factor of, I guess, making it so special. But he started the second half. He didn't start so well, which actually put us under a bit of pressure with his kicking game, and then the Broncos obviously scored those 3 tries. So the fact that he was able to turn that around and then produce what he did, I think makes it his greatest performance. And also, I think anyone in high-performing arenas or high-performance sports will understand how hard it is to, if you aren't having the best day, to be able to turn it around mid-game. So I think that was probably why it was one of the big reasons why it was so good.
Do you question yourself at times like that? And at the start of the year, you'd lost Kikau, you'd lost Api Coruscant. So is that why you say each season is a reset and you just kind of start again, even from your own perspective? You're a champion coach, but do you kind of feel like you start from zero, do you?
Yeah, in some respects, for sure. We're lucky enough to have a system that has had success. So our foundations are very similar when we start each season. So in terms of like building fitness space, for example, just the way we train and the fundamentals that we believe in, and then it's a matter of adding on little pieces of evolution. That will include the playing roster and how much that's changed, all that sort of thing. I just think that's and the fact is every other team's out there improving and building and trying to get what we want. So you can't be living. You can learn from the past, but you don't want to be living in the past. And that's sort of how we face things. And it's exciting again to start another season and get on with it again.
Well, we were hoping over this side that the Warriors come closer this time. And, you know, you must, with the time you've spent here playing and coaching and that, I know that your focus is on Penrith, but how pleased were you for the club and the season that Andrew Webster had?
Yeah, I was really happy. Andrew's a good friend of mine. Worked with us here at Penrith before he went over to the Warriors. So I was, just personally for him, really happy, but for the club and the fans, been through a lot with the team being away from Auckland and New Zealand for so long. Just great to see so many people turning out all over the country, but particularly at Mount Smart. Excuse me, I can't remember what it's called these days, but that stadium.
Okay, mate, Go Media Stadium. It's all right. I'll do that for you, mate. You're all right.
Yeah, no, it's just, just so good. They really got behind the team, and the team performed brilliantly for them throughout the year. So I guess there's a lot of expectation, anticipation, and excitement around the coming season, which is great for rugby league in New Zealand.
Yeah, so how do you define success? You personally define success, Ivan, different from everyone else because you've won back-to-back-to-back premierships. But, we all here in New Zealand consider that was a really successful season. How do you define success in the NRL? Is it making the playoffs or is there other criteria?
I think it just depends on the circumstances of the club. And everyone probably have different views on that potentially. But I guess, for the Warriors, what they were able to achieve last year, I imagine that would be the minimum they'd be trying to get back to. But you know what, the NRL is such a tightly fought competition. It's a parity league where it is the idea for the NRL is to have it as even as they can get it. That's looking through if you look through the list of the teams, some of the teams that didn't make the finals last year, made the top 4 the year before. So it shows that it is hard to back up a good season. So, but I'm sure the Warriors I'm sure they'll be well and truly in the mix.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, around about a minute or so on each when the bell. We move on to the next topic, talking Bangladesh versus the Black Caps, second test starting today. Should Henry Nicholls play? Premier League results. Arsenal got up late. Cracking game we were watching here against Luton. 4-3 away. Declan Rice scoring the winner in the 96th minute. Because football these days lasts for about 98 minutes a half, doesn't it? White Ferns' worst 2 results ever. This is becoming the norm for that team. Why don't they cop the criticism they deserve? Ivan Cleary as coach. Your thoughts on Ivan? KD versus LeBron today, later on this afternoon. Knicks at the moment playing Bucks. This is the in-season tournament. And Lachlan, you should have cashed in your bet yesterday. I said to you that. Man United banned journalists from the club. Well, how weak, goddamn, is that? And the football ferns don't score. Well, surprise, surprise. But let's kick it off with that. 2 women's sports teams, 2 national teams, and they won't cop it, will they? They won't cop it in the headlines. The mainstream media will avoid all talk about how disappointing the results are of these 2 teams. And again, I just find that patronising because this is professional sport and the women deserve better. They deserve to be talked about in the same manner that we talk about men's teams. The football ferns, take away the win against Norway, are the most disappointing national team that New Zealand has produced in the last decade or more.
Thoroughly agree.
No question about that. They are underwhelming every time they play. When do they ever score a goal? Never. That one goal by Hannah Wilkinson. That's it, and that's all that team has to cling to. Okay, the White Ferns, pardon me.
Well, actually, can I just quickly say, with the football ferns, what you're saying is true, but today is a little bit of an outlier, and because I've got all 4 major news websites up, sports news websites up in the country, which are Newshub, The Herald, Stuff, and One News. Newshub's headline, which is probably the most damning of them all, football ferns round out disappointing year with defeat to Colombia. So fair enough. They've actually said what is true. Because it was a disappointing year.
Yeah, it was. A very disappointing year.
The Herald, their headline, football ferns scoreless as Colombia wins second match. That's pretty neutral. There's nothing really either supportive or anti-football ferns in that headline. Stuff, defensive error cost football ferns and lost to Colombia. That's an honest, I think, review of the match. And same thing with One News. Defensive mix-up proves difference as football ferns fall. So, look, 3 of them there are pretty damn neutral, but that News Hub one, to be fair, they're saying it's been a disappointing
Good. Well,
year
it's
for the football
about time,
fans.
isn't it? Because that is the truth, and all we want is just the truth. You know, it doesn't wreck the sport, it doesn't demean the sport, it doesn't belittle the sport. It does, though, when you don't treat the athletes the same as their male counterparts. What the hell is wrong with the White Ferns? We're going to ask Craig Cumming this. Because all year, you look at the results, it's just been disappointment after disappointment. Failing at the T20 World Cup. You know, the odd good innings that is clung to against South Africa. Sri Lanka beat us in one. Pakistan have now beaten our women in the first 2. And you know, most of our women are fully paid professionals these days. They flit around the world playing tournament after tournament. You know, I'm just wondering, again, you know, 2 of our best players play the Big Bash, come here and then fail for New Zealand in these. Is this what we're now to expect with both our men's and women's cricketers, are they? That their best cricket is going to be played when they're not wearing the national uniform?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just firstly, in terms of the results, yes, they've been horribly disappointing. Apart from that bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games, they have not really done anything to prove that either, one, their talent as a team is being utilised to the best of its ability when you consider that Sophie Devine is regarded as one of the best limited overs players in women's cricket globally, and yet gets out cheaply yesterday. And also, I think it really calls into question, I don't really like saying this because I had high hopes for him when he got the job, but Ben Sawyer is the coach. Is he actually doing a good enough job? Nevertheless, with the second part of what you're saying, that's the reality with cricket, I think. And we've seen it a little bit, well, we saw it very much with Trent Bolt and the Black Caps, where he elected to give up the New Zealand jersey for T20 leagues around the world that aren't competitive leagues that give him a lot of money. Then he goes to the World Cup and he's average. A couple of other Kiwis are doing it. And now we saw it with, Amelia Kerr's team who were in the final for the BBL, wasn't it? It wasn't Sophie Devine, it was Amelia Kerr, I think. I'm pretty sure. But it's a sad reality, and we've seen it a little bit with rugby with players wanting to take these sabbaticals, but not to the same extent where they're genuinely giving up their national shirt. But I think it's just got to be the reality with cricket. And it seems that no one's really taking aim at the players, or at least the governing bodies for the international, and in this case, New Zealand cricket.
No, it's just
by
apathy,
saying,
mate. It's just apathy. That's
you
what
guys
it is.
you guys are now diminishing the value of the national
They've just
shirt.
dulled us all into this state where everyone just accepts the mediocrity these days. And that's how I started the show, by saying that, you know, what New Zealand cricket's biggest fear is that no one cares. We're playing Bangladesh today. If we lose this test match, Lachlan, I mean, there should be an outcry. People should be really thoroughly disappointed and outraged at the fact that what the hell are our highly paid professional cricketers doing? Why aren't you better than this? But they won't. But nobody cares. Nobody cares no more, do they? Just so, and that's what
But
you've
I
done.
think
New
it's
Zealand
also because it's Bangladesh. Like, as much as we should be beating them, I just don't think we don't care. Like, if it was Australia when we play them the series next year, early next year, and let's say we get walloped in those 2 tests, like really, I think it's 2 tests, really embarrassingly walloped, then there'll be a bit of an outcry. Like, what the heck's going on? You got the best team in the world coming to your backyard. You've got to show a bit of vigour, a bit of backbone, and actually size up against these guys, and you're doing nothing. Yeah. That's when it'll be a problem. But it's Bangladesh. I mean, with all due respect, yeah, we shouldn't lose, but we also just don't care.
Premier League results today. Arsenal winning 4-3. How impressed were you with that? Especially the late goal. I mean, this was a game last year. They may have dropped points.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be.
I mean,
they should have been winning by 2 or 3 goals.
Well,
it's kind of rich me saying that when my team just got by against Fulham the other day.
Don't underestimate how difficult it is to go to the relegation sides and win away
I know
from
it is, but at the same time, when you've got the quality of play, like, that's fair, but when you've got the quality of players, and you should have the determination that Arsenal you'd expect to have to go on and win this league after leading it for so long last year and then bottling it, you should go to one of these teams. You should go to their grounds and you should beat them up. So I'm not.
Man said he would do,
I'm not exactly. Well, everyone should be doing. I mean, you guys should be doing it to these smaller teams. You look at the resources.
Whole round of matches tomorrow.
I wasn't impressed. No, I mean, they won. Good on them.
More on the Premier League. Man United banning journalists from the club. You see, I think that story to me is just as pathetic as ridiculous. It's just lame and wimpy. You know, what are you scared of? What? Journalists asking questions? Questions need to be asked. You're playing like poop. I think what is more relevant is the comments from Matic, who played for us for about 4 or 5 years, very successful with Chelsea.
He wasn't bad for you guys for the first year or two.
He wasn't as good as he was with Chelsea. But anyway, he's come out now and said, he can't believe this was like Isaac Luke coming to the Warriors and saying, I just can't believe the attitude of training. Guys turning up. Remember that when Isaac Luke said that? Guys turning up, training starts at 9, turning up at 9:05, 9:15, 9:30 on their phones, haven't warmed up. And that's what Matic is saying. Two guys in particular, Pogba and Sancho. Always late for training. Always late. Hello. And these players don't perform. Or they perform once every 8 games, and they have been thoroughly underwhelming.
And the current playing group, are unhappy with Ten Hag for a number of reasons. One of them being because of how he treated Sancho, and yet Sancho's turning up late to every training. I mean, what would happen if you turned up to, let's say our show does start at 1, and we turn up behind the mic at 1:30.
Well, you don't have a job for very long.
No.
I mean, this is
you
what
get
the problem
sacked.
Is. Yeah,
Especially like if let's hypothetically, back when you were at ZB and you did that on when you were doing your weekend show at ZB and you turned up and at 12:30, go, oh sorry guys, just traffic on the roads, blah blah blah, and you went in there at 12:30, and they're like, Martin, your show starts at 12, and let alone you should be in here about 3 or 4 hours beforehand. I remember the Blues players bitching about this a few years ago about how having to get to go to Green Lane to the showgrounds, Alexandra Park at 8 o'clock in the morning was too early, too much traffic. It says everything about you, doesn't it, eh? Yeah, it does.
Wake up earlier, get there earlier, start your day earlier. I mean, it's not that difficult. Ivan Cleary, just a couple of minutes away. Bangladesh, are we going to win this test, by the way, quickly? Second test?
No.
We're going to have to bat first.
I'm going to say that we draw the test. I think get to a point similar to the first test where we're chasing a fair bit and we get to the last day and we just bat out.
Well, we're going to have to bat out, mate, in that case. Which is, okay, well, I don't think we're capable of batting for a day and a half to save a test. So let's see. We're going to have to win the toss. Finally, in-house, in-season tournament going on at the moment, 57-52. This is Milwaukee over the New York Knicks. And yesterday, you wimped out, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I stayed strong. So I had a double on the Pacers and the Kings to win. The Pacers won. That was the big money grabber. That was the low odds. And then, or the high odds, I guess, because they were underdogs anyway. And then the Kings were up by about 16 in the first quarter. The cash out was 35, and it was going to pay me 45 if the Kings ended up winning. I thought maybe I should do this just to be safe. I get a return here, nice big return. I didn't. I held firm, and the Kings lost. So, in terms of Lachlan's best bets today, I've got a double again. I've got Knicks and Lakers.
Knicks and Lakers on the double.
It's paying me $50, so it's paying $5.40.
A tenner on top, was it?
Only 10, yeah. I'm pretty reserved with my amounts I bet.
Yeah,
the Knicks are only down by 6. They're only down by 6.
You don't put a lot of money on. It's just more fun.
Build it up.
Devlin. The platform.
Ivan Cleary is with us on the platform. We thank you so much for your time, mate. You're coaching NRL, you're overachieving, you're winning all that you can achieve. What more can you do as a coach? Would you like to coach Origin?
I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. I always sort of thought that would be out of my kind of range because I didn't play it. But now Michael Maguire's got the job. I don't know. It's not something I've thought about too much. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. It's what I know best. For the coming future, I'm just got my focus on that. I wouldn't rule anything out though, mate. Like it's funny how things happen in sport. I don't think too far ahead. But I'm pretty happy doing what I'm doing.
Could you do both jobs, coach club and coach Origin, or like him, coach an Origin, coach a country? Is it possible to do and combine those jobs?
Oh, I'm sure it's possible, but again, it would be quite a load. I mean, as I said, I've never been, directly involved in Origin, so I can't really say for sure. But just looking, obviously having my son being involved, and just the level of scrutiny and intensity around that period. I mean, it's sort of about 6 weeks, but it's obviously a lot of preparation before that, and then posters, I guess, lots of reviews and stuff. I think it would be very difficult in the modern era to be able to juggle both. But I suppose, maybe some people are out there more organised and smarter than me, so maybe they could.
Ivan, how do you keep yourself so grounded? And you seem to be without ego, and I'm sure that there are times in private and that you absolutely love the fact of what you've achieved, all of that kind of stuff. But how do you keep so normal? And you seem like the same person that I spoke to years ago, which is lovely. But how do you do that?
Oh, thanks, mate. I don't really know. I have an ego like everyone else. I guess I believe in collaboration and giving empowerment. And at the end of the day, coaching rugby league is a passion, but it's a job. And I'm a not my identity. It's not who I am. It's something I do. So I guess that's how I look at it. Other than that, I'm not too sure, mate. I just live my life how I think I should, and just do my best and make mistakes and get up and go again like everyone else, I guess.
Awkward question time. How do you balance some of the personalities? Because you know, for example, that Jerome Luai, loved by the Penrith fans, loved by the faithful, but a very hard guy to like for the rest of us who don't support Penrith. And yet you've got to balance personalities in your side. You've got to cope with all the media stuff. You've got to cope with all the social media stuff. Is it something that you get help with, or how do you deal with all of that?
Yeah, well, that's part of the beauty of teams. You have different personalities, and as long as everyone's all going in the same direction, fighting for the same cause, living the same values, then it's actually a strength to have different personalities. Jerome, for example, he's our version of the villain. So
yeah,
it's kind of cool to have people like that because we love him, and he sort of feeds off all that energy. The other way around as well. It's just part of the job, mate. Like having a group of friends. They're all different. And the way they all come together makes it a bit more interesting. So I suppose that's the way I look at it. In terms of the media, and it can be it can be challenging at times. But the media also drive our game and drive interest, and you're never going to be 100% happy with it all the time. But that's just life. So that's how it is.
That post-final interview that you did on Breakfast TV was absolutely brilliant. How much of that can you remember, and have you gone back and looked at the footage?
Yeah. No, I haven't really looked at it. I remember a bit of it. It was just one of those moments where I was floating on cloud nine.
Yep.
It happened. I think people thought they didn't realise I actually had a personality. So there you go.
See, that's the greatest thing. I mean, you don't have to be like Craig Bellamy. You don't have to be like Ricky Stewart. Are there times that you just would love to throw a wobbly like that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I guess you can let your guard down sometimes. That was just one of those moments. Everyone seemed to like it, so I hope it didn't offend anyone.
No, it didn't offend anyone, mate. It's just real is what it is. And I think that's, as people have been listening to this, I mean, that's obviously part of what you do. I mean, it's obviously much more fun, isn't it, when you're winning? But you said right at the beginning, then you get that actual pressure of wanting to win. And does it almost feel like having to win again and again?
A little bit. I mean, expectation is something that, as you go along, you can't say you're ever used to it, and it sort of grows and grows, and your margin of error gets a little bit smaller. And I suppose, we're definitely feeling a little bit like that. At the end of the day, I think that's a good thing. That's a good problem to have. You'd rather be having that expectation of winning, and rather than trying to climb out of the bottom four, for example. So, I mean, you can't get too concerned with it. Got to have high standards, and that's what we'll try and live up to each day. And if we do that often enough, then the wins should come. So that's how we look at it anyway.
Two quick questions. I'll let you go, and thank you so much for your time again, Ivan. Absolutely brilliant, mate. So do you have to reinvent the wheel again next year when you start again with your side, and when do you start again?
Yeah, we've already started, although we've got a couple of different cohorts of players to come back, at various times because like our rep players, for example, they won't be back until after Christmas. We've got a group on the grand final who start on Thursday, actually, this week. So, and we've already had a young group and some new players already started. So, we don't reinvent the wheel. Definitely not. We have a system that we believe in, and that will always be our foundation. But there's definitely some pieces of evolution that we've got to add. Based on, as I said earlier, based on your players, and just how the game's evolving. And if you're not improving and you're not evolving, then in our league, then you're going backwards. So that's something that we'll continue to work on. I don't have all the answers yet, especially because all our key players aren't back at training yet, so we're going to have to go through those conversations and sort of see what they think. But in the meantime, we'll just go ahead with our foundation and start building as we would every other year.
How do you beat you guys next year, mate?
I'm not going to tell you that, mate. No way. No, mate, we're like, it's just like it. Everyone's beatable. Any given day. In our league, as I said, I think anyone can beat anyone. So I'm just worrying about trying to beat everyone else. So I'm not thinking about that one.
And as far as Ivan Cleary at home goes, you still have to do the duties. You're still doing rubbish. You're still doing lawns. You're still actually, when you get home, you're just a dad, all that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. Quite like doing all that stuff, and certainly my kids have never shown any interest in trying to help me mow the lawns or anything.
It's a worldwide problem, mate.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, look, great talking to you. And look, it's I don't know how to actually phrase this, but it's so heartwarming. It's so good to see you having so much success, because you're obviously such a decent person, and you had left New Zealand with, amazing reputation here, and so many people here like you. And I think for most of us that, even though we love our Warriors, when we see you and Nathan enjoying it so much and obviously winning so much, it's bloody great to see, mate. Thank you so much for your time as always.
Oh, thanks, mate. That really means a lot to me. I love New Zealand. I had a great time there and always enjoy coming back. So great to see the Warriors doing well too. So thanks, mate. I really appreciate it.
He's probably more well known by the shortened version of his name, Mehrtens. Andrew Mehrtens. 70 appearances for the All Blacks, 87 for the Crusaders, 108 for Canterbury. That was back in the day when players did play for the NPC sides. He's made a real career for himself, just like Justin Marshall has, as an expert pundit and analyst post-match. He's just a really good dude. So much fun to be around if you ever bump into him, Andrew Mehrtens. Lots of questions to ask Mertz, including just look back at the Rugby World Cup. What's the state of the game at the moment? Is it a good game to watch or not? Razor's first year in charge. Who's going to be the All Blacks' first five? That old chestnut about should we pick players playing overseas? Andrew Mehrtens, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about the World Cup before we talk about anything else. So we've had a couple of weeks or more than that to actually digest this. How did you feel about just basically overall the tournament, the excitement of it, the build-up to the final, everything like that?
Look, it was an awesome tournament. I've seen wins and I've seen losses now. So while I was desperate for the All Blacks to win, they didn't. You move on. It was a tough pill to swallow on the night, but you move on. There's one winner, and everyone else goes back to their rugby, or in New Zealand and Southern Hemisphere case, you go back to a summer, and so you got rocks under your beach towel, for another couple of months. But over here, they're straight back into it. I really enjoyed the event. I think a little bit of the sting went out of it when France lost in the quarterfinals. They made a valiant attempt to keep celebrating the tournament and whatnot, and they were very proud of their delivery of the tournament, but at the same time they completely lost their mojo for it, as you'd expect. So that was a bit of a shame. I thought economically for the tournament, the best final would have been France-Ireland or France-England, or probably Japan. In a few years' time, if we can manufacture a couple of Indian players into a couple of the teams and access that market of 1.4 billion people, then I think that's great economically. But I thought France being in the final would have been good. It was a real disappointment. At the same time, what a wonderful weekend that quarterfinals weekend
brilliant.
Was.
Best ever rugby I've been to, mate.
Yeah.
Those two games are the best ever
Test
matches.
About that quarterfinals weekend for so long. Loved it in Japan, and this, it was tough for teams that there were the four top teams really in the world on one side of the draw, but it made for four really, really even quarterfinals, and it was a tremendous spectacle that whole weekend. So it was a great tournament. It went by. I was work. Maybe not everybody calls it work, but I was pretty busy throughout the tournament. Didn't really get to relax and just enjoy watching any of the games. I was mostly talking through it, ruining the experience for myself and for every listener. But it was pretty hectic. It was good. One of the great parts of it, Marty, is you get to run into all the old boys, all the old fellas from all the different teams that you might not have had too much to do with when you're playing against them. So, the Saffers and the Irish boys and the Scottish and the English and just whatever, the Aussies, all the old Kiwi guys from different eras, and you get to run into them a little bit. They're all running around working, trying to milk the corporate dollar, of course. But every now and then you get those little windows where you get a chance to have a catch up with them, which was a lot of fun. And, we're lucky it only comes around every 4 years. I don't think anyone could handle it being every year.
No,
so
liver kidneys,
there we go.
yeah,
We've got
that's
4
it.
years to build up for
You know,
Australia.
The All Blacks are sitting in a situation, mate, where I think it's a bit like the baby Blacks, which might even been before your time, way back in the 80s and then 86 and then, of course, in 95 when you came along. We really are looking at a new generation, aren't we? And I don't know whether that means a new way of playing, but what do you think about, where Razor is at the moment with all the players that he's lost and what potentially he can bring and how he might approach this job?
Well, I don't think he'll be scared of getting in and kind of rebuilding. It's a term we probably use a little bit too often in rugby, but, he's done that with the Crusaders. He's proved his longevity at the Crusaders. Yes, he's had class players, but he's developed a lot of those class players himself. So he's he's certainly not afraid of rolling his sleeves up and taking a player with some raw talent, raw ability, and refining that player and refining combinations and refining the group collectively. He's unproven at test level yet. Has he earned his chance to be there? Absolutely. He couldn't have done any more to get to the position that he is now. So, we'll soon see whether it does come across to international rugby. I think his approach will. I think he's very much about empowering the players, just creating an environment to allow them to drive their own destiny. And that's very important these days. No, you can't have the prescriptive model that we had 30 or 40 years ago, which worked then, which was a coach basically telling the team what to do, and you might have one or two leaders on the field calling the shots. Now it's around, decision-making processes and stuff like that, and putting the environment in place so that guys and girls can train to their optimum during the week, get the absolute best out of themselves physically and mentally, and Razor's massively into that. He was one of the guys I played with. You would have never thought in the old coaching model that he would have been a good rugby coach, but it's evolved and he's evolved with it, and I think he's fantastic. One of the things, he's always thirsty to learn. He's very good at delegating. He doesn't get intimidated by having an expert in their field alongside, so he wants to surround his players with the best possible advice they can get, whether it's nutrition, whether it's skills work, whether it's whatever. So, he's got no kind of ego in that regard. He just wants to provide the best environment for the players. So, I'm excited. Is it a laydown that he's, for him? And then absolutely not. It's a tough environment now. We've got it even tougher now in New Zealand, competing against these countries with big resources, big money, big numbers of players. You look at France, how much they've developed over the last 10 years in terms of their consistency and the depth in the squad. They're just going from strength to strength, and they've got unbelievable competitions over here, 30 fully professional teams. So we are up against it, and we've got to remain innovative. And I think having a coach like Razor is a natural innovator. He doesn't rest on his laurels. He always looks to try and be better. How can we do things differently, test things out? And I think that's great for the All Blacks because we need to be that.
And, of course, I was always going to ask you this question. I mean, the thorny old topic, and Sam Cane raised it a couple of weeks ago, and it comes up every year, doesn't it? Especially comes up at this time of the year when the news is a little slow on the rugby front about whether or not we should be picking players from overseas. And Richie Mwanga is just the latest test case in that. Beauden Barrett has re-signed with New Zealand Rugby, so he can come back. Is there an ideal situation, or is it just going to have to be player by player and essential for New Zealand Rugby to still retain, hey, look, if we give up this All Black jersey for overseas, well, we've lost just about everything. So where do you sit?
Look, I think it's a really hard one. I think we're not too far off it at the moment. I think we don't feel weak when we lose players at the moment, despite the fact, Barrett and Mwanga are going up to play in Japan. There will come a time where we feel, okay, if there's too much of an exodus, yes, we do actually feel weak. At the moment, I don't think we do. At the same time, I think ultimately we do need to look at considering players if they're playing in our competition, in our side of the world. I think, but what's going to help that, the ideal situation for New Zealand really is for World Rugby to get in and structure this global season. Now, that's a really tough ask because they're up against the private owners of clubs over here in Europe who are paying the bulk of the salary to players, and they want their pound of flesh. So World Rugby coming in and just creating a global season is not as easy as it sounds. But once that does happen, and once there's a little bit more control around salary caps and things like that, and we don't have to compete financially, if we end up competing financially at the moment with France or with England, we lose. As soon as there's a point where we don't have to compete financially, where there is a little bit more regulation over players and transferability and that sort of stuff, and sharing kind of the proceeds globally, when that happens, we're not behind the eight ball as much. But when that happens is absolutely another matter, and I don't profess to have the answer to that either, Marty. I mean, I was saying for a few years I'd love to see players from New Zealand playing in Super Rugby, but for other teams, whether it be in Australia or whether it be in Singapore or Japan, whatever, and still being eligible for the All Blacks because it's still in our competition. And in fact, it takes a significant whack off the New Zealand rugby payroll. But we're not quite at that point yet because the competition isn't strong enough outside of New Zealand at the moment in Super Rugby.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.